The blueprint, study my movement, more than the 2 cents. Was losing, now I'm oozing with success. Now I got the tools to beat the stress. I lose cause I'm a step ahead of you.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Let's talk about NXT Stand and Deliver from April the 2nd, 2022. Quick thoughts. It was a solid show, not a blowaway. It did feel like an episode of NXT on a bigger scale. But I feel like all of the matches delivered in some way, but none of them exceeded expectations. I do think that there's going to be some criticisms here and there, but I realize that NXT is in a rebuilding stage. So it is what it is, but I think I had fun with the show. I just have more fun with the TV product. Let's put it like that. To me, the very match-heavy episodes are fun, but since all the characters are zany and wild, and a lot of the promos and stuff are with zany and wild about NXT, it takes like a hyper focus on the matches here, and then you kind of start seeing where they need work, right? So let's get into the matches. So match 1, the North American Championship ladder match: Santos Escobar, Grayson Waller, Solo Sikoa, Cameron Grimes, and Carmelo Hayes. Cameron Grimes was the winner of this match, which was the right decision. There was no in-ring introduction for Santos Escobar, Grayson Waller, or Solo Sikoa. And to me, that just shows that you don't care about these guys. If they were important, you'd give them an entrance. The only 2 people who got an entrance, Cameron Grimes and Carmelo Hayes. So you kind of just telegraphed who was going to win, because only person other than the champion who got an entrance was Cameron Grimes. So they kind of gave it away. But this match was wild. It was a pretty wild match. And there was some really good stuff here. The springboard lariat by Carmelo Hayes, on Grayson Waller off the ladder. The stuff with Sangha and the Legado del Fantasma, it seemed like that might have had some potential. Like we might actually be looking at, hey, could the LDF really be turning babyface? You know, I still want that, that thing with the Mysterios, but I would have liked for the Mysterios to have won at WrestleMania. But, if I'd have watched this when I was supposed to watch it, I wouldn't have known the Mysterios had already lost. So there's no reason for me to get upset about that. Also, let's talk about Sanga's absolutely marvelous mustache that is curved up like the Iron Sheik. So he's got like this beard and his mustache curls up like he's the Iron Sheik. It's like the weirdest look ever. And he's a very solid built man. Like as people was attacking him, especially Legado del Fantasma, he was just not moving. And it was totally believable that these small people couldn't hurt him. I forgot to mention also, during that whole Legado del Fantasma thing, Elektra Lopez did a jump off the ropes onto Waller, and it was pretty sweet. She got a little bit of help from one of the LDS members, so that was pretty sweet. Trick Williams, he had a gag where he was scared of heights, so he was, going all tepidly up the ladder, trying to win for Carmelo Hayes, and then Cameron Grimes tipped the whole thing over, and Trick Williams ended up falling onto everybody. Santos Escobar did a Hurricanrana off the ladder using Grayson Waller. It was wild. And then Grayson Waller absolutely mutilated himself with a flying elbow drop that he missed and hit the ladder. And then it just looked bad from there. I don't know if that was just part of the act or was he legitimately mangled. Because I didn't read spoilers, and I went away from this purposefully to avoid spoilers. So I don't know if he's literally hurt or not. It didn't look good, that's for sure. So Cameron Grimes won the match. Right decision, right guy. Carmelo Hayes didn't get pinned, so we could continue this feud. Or we could start one, I guess. Hayes losing, not that big of a deal. He had a nice little run with the title. I figured he would lose anyway. It's a typical story of the cocky heel getting a little ahead of himself, put himself at a disadvantage and ended up losing, but this was a strong match on this show. Good work from everybody. Everybody did a great spot stuff for Solo Sikoa. I mean, he had some stuff, but he was just kind of like a big body in there. He's a catch everybody who jumps kind of person. So Tony D'Angelo defeated Tommaso Ciampa. The match was okay. It was a solid match. Tony D'Angelo was driving to the ring, and he had some other Italian guy with him. They kept saying the guy's name, but I don't know what it is, because I don't know what he's famous for or whatever. So he's just kind of like a guy who was there. They showed a vignette of Ciampa's best NXT moments for his introduction. It was very emotional. He came out and, did some fist bumps for Vic Joseph and Wade Barrett, which was pretty cool. The match was fine. Obviously, Tony D'Angelo needs some more ring time. This is for guys like him and Braun Breaker. You got to realize they're not even at 50 matches yet. So D'Angelo is getting in there, and he's learning. He's being microwaved right now. The funniest part to me is when Ciampa was trying to pull up the mats, and he kept failing. Like, he kept jobbing out to these mats. Like, he kept pulling the mats up, and then the mats would slip, and it'd go back down. So Tony D'Angelo was, I guess, dead, shot in the head, crippled for a few minutes while Ciampa did his best to finally get these mats up. That was pretty funny. Tony D'Angelo hit his finish. I guess it's called the forget about it. And Tommaso Ciampa kicked out of it. So, but Tony D'Angelo ended up winning the match in the end. And it was the right decision, obviously, for Tommaso Ciampa to take the L. It was emotional for Ciampa and for the NXT fan base. On Peacock Plus, we got to see, or was it Premium Peacock, or whatever the hell you're calling it, Triple H come out and hug Tommaso Ciampa, and that was very meaningful. That was very important. That was good. That was nice. Tommaso Ciampa, I just read in an issue of Preacher, because I've been reading the comic book, and there is a scene in there where there's this guy, and the guy is talking about how he wanted to be an astronaut when he was a little boy, because he was 10 years old or whatever when moon landing occurred. And he wasn't picked to be an astronaut because he was too small, even though he wanted it really, really badly. He was too small. And he talks about in this issue that for all the people who are tall and big and muscly and good looking, he would have did such a great job on grit alone, just off of how bad he really wanted it. He could have been an astronaut. And that made me think of Tommaso Ciampa. When I think of Tommaso Ciampa, that's what I see. I see a guy who is not big in stature, but a guy who will go after what he wants with reckless abandon. Like a guy who's trying to climb a mountain, barehanded and barefoot. That's just kind of how I see Tommaso Ciampa. A lot like Chris Benoit. And hopefully, somebody sees something in this guy on the main roster, because, he's gone now. And that's going to be a tough uphill battle, because no matter how shredded he is, no matter how good he is as a performer, everybody's just going to look at him and see that he's small. He has the ability to come across as being bigger. We just don't know how big, Can he stand in the ring with Roman or Brock or something like that? Probably not. And I think that once you try to do that visual, it's going to become a problem. But he could be a very solid mid-card act, upper mid-card act. What Benoit was, he can be that. Benoit could get in there with Brock sometimes. He can get in there with Undertaker or, some bigger guys and look legit and look like he was really in there in a fight, And hopefully Ciampa will get that opportunity, because he does a really good job. Okay, third match, the Creed brothers, MSK and Imperium. MSK win the tag team championships again. Fuck, we're in. Oh, cringe SK. Okay, so that's not really special entrances, because you got the Creed cloths, which were debuted. The Creeds were wearing very crisp white sweatsuits, which I thought was very, very dapper, very debonair of them to be wearing the crispiest of crispy whites. The Creed claws are basically terrible towels from like the Pittsburgh Steelers, where you spin them in the air or whatever. You could do that with like a regular white towel, though. It doesn't have to be like Creed Brothers branded. It's not like this. Like, you should have put it like a specific color scheme or something like that. Or, you got the Diamond Mine logo on it, but come on. You don't need to have a Diamond Mine logo on it. They had some guy named DJ Tommy such and such. and he played MSK to the ring, and I was like, boo, this shit cringe, bruh. And they proceeded to come to the ring anyway. They changed Imperium's theme song, and I was instantly triggered. It is not necessary. It was not necessary for them to change their theme song. It was not necessary. Furthermore, it was not wanted. It's not a bad song. I'm saying, like, the new song is not bad. It just was not wanted. Just was not necessary. MSK winning really put a damper on this thing. There was a superplex from the top rope. I forget who did it. And it was onto the crowd of everybody else. They usually do that outside the ring. They did it in the ring this time. So I thought that was, actually not too bad. Big fan of Imperium and big fan of the Creed brothers. And then the worst team won. Hey, Mongo, you need to go piss up a rope. Even though you're one of the biggest supporters of NXT 2.0, we're not going to give you nothing. We got a Joe Gacy promo, which is pretty radical. He was in some world famous plaza talking about how tragedy unites people, but why people don't unite over triumph. And he sees it as his responsibility to unite people over peace, and you should freely choose peace so that we don't ever have to need tragedy again. It seems like they're trying to take the peacemaker route. Like, okay, Joe Gacy was a little too edgy at first, so they kind of smoothed him out. And then in doing that, the character lost its way. So now they're going to go the peacekeeper route, or the peacemaker route, which is, the John Cena character, well, DC character that John Cena portrays in the TV show, who loves peace so much that it doesn't matter how many men and women or children he's got to kill to keep it. Which sounds like a strange paradox, and it is. But it actually makes sense if you think about it, because, violence is inevitable. So sometimes you do have to, beat people up in order to maintain the peace. Sometimes there's one person or two people or whatever, a group of people that want to be a problem, and you might have to use violence to stop them and to restore the peace. So it's not the paradox people think it is. If you know human nature, sometimes the only way to keep the peace is somebody got to get punched in the face. So, Joe Gacy is kind of like going in this direction where he's trying to unite people over triumph, but it might be necessary to do violence in order to make that happen. And, it's a good direction for the character, and he just needs something, because again, after his initial anti-woke stuff, it made people so uncomfortable. That's why I loved it so much, because it made some people so uncomfortable. But then they decided they was going to take their foot off the gas, which is just WWE being WWE. Oh, we got this great thing here. Yeah, let's smooth it out a little bit. It's a little too rough around the edges. People are getting upset. Let's chill out. We don't want to upset anybody. Instead of just saying, fuck it, we going in. You selling? Oh, keep working that arm. I'm about to work that limb. Which is, would have been a smart thing to do, but they didn't. I didn't watch the pre-show. So I learned about the tag team championship, the women's tag team titles changing hands, on the show itself. So they showed that, Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez won the tag team titles. Raquel Gonzalez maintains her avoidance of the main roster, despite the fact that she needs to get her ass on up there. It is just beyond time. And Dakota Kai still manages to be the ghost of NXT past and still be there. I'm so glad I didn't watch this match, though, because Wendy Chu hit Gigi Dolan in the face with a pillow and then threw a drink in her face. And I was like, oh, my goodness. I didn't like Toxic Attraction losing. I don't think it was smart. I think it was kind of silly. I know that, maybe you don't want them to have all the titles. You want to spread the titles around. But they were doing good. Why separate? Why take the titles from them? Like, they were hot. Why separate them? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I mean, hot, by separate, I mean separate them from the titles. You put the titles on your hottest group. Like, Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai isn't your hottest group. And it wasn't even really in a real good feud either. And it was on the pre-show. Like, come on. Ugh. But I'm guessing now the Wendy Chu is going to join the Raquel Gonzalez Dakota Kai squad. And they're going to probably move Wendy Chu into the top women's spot. hopefully that's not going to occur, but we'll see. Mandy Rose defeated Cora Jade, Io Shirai, and Kaylee Ray to maintain her grip on the NXT Women's Championship. Mandy Rose was riding on the Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25 podium with the wings on the screen. It was pretty dope. Bad News Barrett thought that it was his thing, but he must have forgot about WrestleMania 25 when Shawn was on the podium, and it was like slowly descending, and it had like the light that was on Shawn, and he was wearing white. That's basically what they were doing here, except for it was like angel's wings behind Mandy Rose. It was very, very HBK visual, and then she was wearing like the punk rock jacket. I thought it was pretty sweet, and her tan was, she looked like a beautiful roasted turkey. My goodness. It was great. It was great. So Cora Jade worked this match as if it was a singles match because she was just almost exclusively going after Mandy Rose, and her stuff didn't look too bad. I'll never get over forearm shivers. I hate forearm shivers in wrestling. The more I see them, the more I hate them. I hate them so much. Kaylee Ray was her usual self, but there was a stalling suplex to back up a little bit from Cora Jade to by Mandy Rose onto Cora Jade. And women are not known for their upper body strength. Let's put it like that. So Mandy Rose, despite the fact she looked like a beautiful fitness model, she doesn't really develop her upper body strength. So it was not looking good for Cora Jade's neck, as Mandy Rose basically mangled her neck to try to keep her steady without her falling for that suplex. And it wasn't long, but it was there. Cora Jade also used a Canadian Destroyer on the ring apron on Kaylee Ray, which should have taken her out of the match, but it didn't, because a Canadian Destroyer doesn't mean anything in modern world. Sad. So the finishing sequence comes with Io Shirai hitting her moonsault on, I forget who she hit the moonsault on. I think it might have been Cora Jade. And right before the pin, Mandy Rose ran onto the screen and hit her Kenny Omega inspired knee strike to the head, and then pinned Io Shirai. And that surprised me. I was surprised Io Shirai took the pin. In a match with Kaylee Ray, who is literally nobody in this company at this point, they gave Io Shirai the loss. Interesting. Very, very interesting. But Mandy Rose winning is the right decision. If this was a singles match, I still wouldn't put the belt on Cora Jade, but I would have been more apt to do that. But Io Shirai doesn't need to win, and Kaylee Ray, if she want to be like Casey from Ninja Turtles and walking around with like a sack of baseball bats or hockey sticks or whatever the fuck, she can do whatever she wants, but she needs like a personality transplant in the worst way possible. And until she gets that, I'm not in favor of Kaylee Ray winning anything until she gets a personality. And since I know she's not one of these youngins out here, she's got to be in her early 30s, she needs to hurry up and find that personality very, very quickly. So we got the results of the Who's the Hottest Couple in NXT, and Index won, and they were all wearing cowboy hats. And I'm guessing this was some more stuff that's off the pre-show that I didn't watch. So the girls were wearing cowboy hats with, all kinds of stuff, and the guys were too. So Duke Hudson got upset and said he refused to believe that Index is a hotter couple than Dershia. And a pull apart started to occur as the girls had to separate the guys. And they're not really, they're trying their best to stave off the inevitable mixed tag match or mixed match that that is going to occur. But again, I maintain that this is probably not the best way to build up the Persia Parada storyline. I think that, yes, Persia Parada did need to have a personality. She needed to find something in terms of a personality, but I don't think this was the right direction. I think they need to change course and mix this into the Persia Parada that, was getting over, which is the one who was going out there beating two girls by herself. So she needs to wipe her feet with Indy Hartwell. on an episode of NXT. I'm just talking like completely destroy her and reestablish that, yeah, she might be love struck and everything right now, but if you piss Persia Pirotta off, she will, tear your ass apart and, put you back together again if she felt like it. Otherwise, she's dead in the water, because there's a lot of, sort of fitness type of chicks on this roster, and there's more coming, because I've seen some of the chicks who have been hanging out at WrestleMania and stuff like that. There's more coming. There's gonna be more fitness models and stuff like that, so she better get it together. LA Knight versus Gunther, really good match. I don't know if Gunther losing all of the weight was the best idea, considering Gunther lost a lot of his aura. He lost a lot of his presence when he lost that weight. He doesn't look, he looks more normal than ever. And as far as his character is concerned, his character is sort of diminished by him not being as imposing. But his matches are still just as good. His psychology and everything is still very good. LA Knight, of course, top notch. This is just something I could just sit back and watch, and I don't have to critique too much of it because I know that the stuff is good. Walter had a pretty good sleeper hold on LA Knight. It was pretty snug too. And LA Knight countered it by utilizing the burning hammer. Old Kenta Kobashi finish. Usually you dump the guy on his head, but this is WWE. So I saw a burning hammer and a guy kicked out of it. That's just modern wrestling, man. That's just modern wrestling, guys use the burning hammer and kicked out of it. But Gunther, the style is so physical. He makes you look good by beating your ass, because his style is so physical that you look like you were in a fight and you lost, and it doesn't look like you were playing along and you just laid down for the guy. It literally looks like Gunther pummeled you. And we already know with the chops and everything, how vicious he could be. And, LA Knight was actually countering some of those chops too. So it was really good stuff. And Gunther wins with a splash and then a power bomb for the pinfall. Gunther winning was the right decision. I know LA Knight is losing a lot. That's probably not good. Hopefully his call up is about to happen, because it's not really good. And now that apparently Dolph Ziggler, DZ 2.0, who defeated Brian Breaker, which surprised the fuck out of me. Since Dolph is going to be there, we don't need LA Knight. LA Knight can come up. Him and Dolph and Rude should be moved to NXT exclusively. Therefore, they could be the trainers, the hand-on guys. And then Tommaso Ciampa and LA Knight can be called up, so they can get their run, because Ziggler and Rude have had their run on WWE TV. They're not going to ever elevate beyond where they are right now on Raw or whatever. Just trade them out. Bring up LA Knight and bring up Tommaso Ciampa. Send Rude and Ziggler back to NXT. That's, I like that. So what I didn't like, however, was that Brian Breaker had a multicolored chainsaw. He had a rainbow chainsaw. A Superman ice cream colored chainsaw. Do we really need this? Like, the chainsaw is cool. Like, the idea of, Brian Breaker with a chainsaw can be very cool. Why they churched it up with all of these colors, I have no idea. We didn't need all the colors. Just let it be a badass fucking chainsaw. It could have just been like a solid red or a solid white. Something, anything. So we continue Brian Breaker's streak of destroying NXT logos by having him cut through the X of the NXT logo this time. And he really did damage to that logo. I thought he was going to cut up the whole thing. He only cut up the X. Oh, well. If they want to give him like a chainsaw-inspired character, that ought to be fine. He does need a persona. So this match was actually surprising in how much of it was ground-based. And I mean by Dolph Ziggler grabbing a chin lock and working it. Dolph Ziggler grabbing a sleeper hold and working it, forcing Bryan to work his way out of him. The crowd clearly doesn't like that. It wasn't the most crowd-friendly style, but they had a lot of time. So, eventually, you got to learn how to work your way out of, submission holds and grappling and stuff like that. And that was the good part, because Dolph was utilizing his grappling. You know, he's an amateur wrestler. He was doing a lot of that stuff, and then he was, you know, trying to nullify the strength of Brian Breaker, trying to keep him down, trying to work on him. Rude was rejected early, ejected. I'm lisping, and he came back later after the Gorilla Press Slam and pulled Dolph Ziggler out of the ring. Now, it gave us the idea that perhaps it should have been a disqualification, that Rude pulled Dolph Ziggler out of the ring right in front of the referee. And even though he had already been ejected, something should have happened. Yes, there should have been some type of bureaucratic decision made, and I'm guessing that we're building to that. You know, I'm guessing we're building to Braun got screwed, and there being a rematch based on that. But even after, you know, Braun goes out of the ring, he throws Rude into the steps. There's a Faymaster, and Braun just pops back up from the Faymaster and gets hit with the zigzag, and he only gets a 2 count. And now Dolph is in trouble, because, you know, those are his 2 best moves. You know, that's it for Dolph. You know, he really ain't got too much else for you. So Braun Breaker eventually bangs his head on the turnbuckle. Dolph removed that turnbuckle pad because one of Braun's strongest holds has been the spear. He's adopted the spear. As a football player, the spear makes sense. But since we have so many football players on the roster, everybody can't use the spear. And as long as, you know, Roman Reigns is using the spear as a finish, nobody else should be using the spear. Because we got Lashley doing it. You got Braun Breaker doing it. You got girls doing the spear. It's like, bro, can we... I know it's a safe move, but come on. You know, let's go back to the days where one guy did a move. And it isn't everybody doing a super kick, because that's what's the finish here. But there was guys doing super kicks earlier in the night. I think Solo Sikoa did a super kick. I'm pretty sure Santos Escobar did a super kick. You know, there was guys doing super kicks. That's somebody's finish, bro. We don't... Come on. That old structure, it existed for a reason. You know, it existed for a reason. And I know that sometimes people really get, you know, tight-assed, and they say, you need to loosen up. Like, what was it? Johnny Morrison recently started saying that WWE referees have too much authority. I say, like, their referees don't know the finish. You know, like, they kind of went away from that. Last I checked, WWE doesn't tell the referees to finish. So they try to make the referees have, like, some real authority. But it does kind of put the cramp a little bit on your style, but that's the point. You know, that's the old school mentality is, you know, the referee is supposed to have some type of authority, you know, because it has to be rules and regulations. It's just like that in sports, you know, in real sports, you know, if you don't call a holding penalty and a guy, you know, was like, whoa, that was clearly holding, you can be like, we was just gonna let him play through. Nah, you can't do that. You got to call the fucking holding call. You know, sometimes we don't want the referees to do that. And yes, it does put the referees over and that kind of thing. But at the same time, don't you want fair officiating? I think we don't want some people do, because Mexico has, you know, heel referees where they refuse to count and that kind of shit. And I'm just talking like in regular matches, not even like main events or anything. We don't want to go that far where we got kabuki refs who just are like the NWO referees, and they're just absolutely silly and stupid, and we don't know what's going on and what the rules are. You don't want AEW refs, but we don't need Nazi refs either that are like obsessive over everything and quick to disqualify and count out. But that was the game plan here, is to create a situation in which Braun can lose and still have a reason to complain, still have a complaint. And this complaint obviously is going to be that Dolph Ziggler was saved by Robert Roode. And I'm not thrilled about the idea of Braun losing his first big match. Like, what I mean by big is his first match outside of the NXT Capital Wrestling Center, or the NXT Arena, whatever they're calling it these days. This was a big match on a big weekend. I'm guessing they have more plans for Dolph, which means that he should be removed from Raw. I'd say it again. But Brian losing, I don't think he'll be called up. I think they just want to continue his development, and he doesn't need to be the champion to develop. He also needs to develop a persona. He needs to develop a personality. We know he can do the work now. You know, his matches are good. His matches are good. He gets pops at the right time. He's intense. He's doing that part right. We need character stuff now. We need him to go beyond. I'm just the hardest working man in the building. He needs to go from a little beyond that. We need to develop his persona, develop his relationship with the audience, and then we can call him up to the main roster. And then, I wouldn't want to put him in the main roster right now. And I'm not saying I'm recording this before Raw, but I don't know if I would do that. If I would put him on the main roster immediately, I don't think I would. It doesn't seem like it would make sense to me. But stranger things have happened. You never know what their plans are. They might be looking at, hey, we like the kid. He's good. He's great. He's getting good reactions. Everybody seems to like him. Everybody knows who he is. But you also want to keep him in NXT because he wanted the stars. He needs some permanence there. More and more people are starting to find NXT on TV, and the ratings are actually improving. So don't, mess with one of the golden geese of NXT. Keep them there. Keep them there. Work other angles. Do that kind of stuff. Put him in another division. Put him in a tag team for a little while. Put him in the North American title division for a little while. Let him work his way back in there. He needs to be in NXT for at least a year. I wouldn't even bring him up to WrestleMania next year. Probably the Royal Rumble. Give him some more time. He's only 24. What's the rush? There shouldn't be any rush right now. But I enjoyed NXT, clearly. I thought it was a very good show. It lacks the character and the loud presentation of the TV product, but it'll come along eventually as the work gets better and they start doing, skits and different things like that on the pay-per-views. It'll get better. But what I really enjoyed about this show is that it was 2 hours and 30 minutes. It was great. It was like a double stacked episode of NXT. That's all. It was just an episode of NXT with bigger stakes and in a bigger arena. And with, they didn't have pyro, which they probably should have had, but bigger screens. And that just felt better. That felt nice. But let me know what you guys thought of NXT Stand and Deliver. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.